I wanted to say that it's been great. Speaking of community, I've been coming to the live events for a few years now at different locations. So thank you, Sergey, for coming, getting this group together. And I'm really excited to speak today, even virtually, about web performance and SEO, which is a topic that's interesting to me. And I'm sure you guys are very smart and a technical bunch. Some of the insights you already know, but I think you're gonna learn something new here today as well. And with that, I'm actually going to start recording. So we have just a second option. We're going to get into the talk. So topics that we're going to cover today, brief introduction about myself and the company I work for. We'll talk about why pages are slow really quickly. And then we'll take a look at 2 ways to look at page speed, from the user's point of view, which is very familiar to most of you guys, and from the bot's point of view. After that, I'll tell you a story about digging for data in the platform and how we're able to actually see some insights correlating performance metrics with organic search metrics. And then in the end, we'll talk about how to make pages faster for search engine bots, what options do we have, and we'll do a Q&A afterwards. So please feel free to submit your questions as you think of them into the chat, and then we'll take some time at the end to answer. I am a New Yorker, so I've been living in New York for a number of years, still here, even in this pandemic and quarantine. But originally, I am actually from Russia. I was born in Russia. This is a picture of beautiful St. Petersburg. I went to college there. This is another snapshot that I took there of a Museum of Soviet Lifestyle, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't go inside, but if you visit, maybe it's interesting for you. I grew up in Kazakhstan, which is a big country next to Russia. This is me and my dad at the local market. So I come from a small town, but made it all the way here to New York. This is a picture of my hometown from last year. I started in web development, actually doing some programming for SEO, and then I moved into the agency world. I was doing some technical management at 360i and Reprise, and then finally moved back to SEO. So if it was a different world, I would probably be either a writer or a surfer, but I also love what I do. And now I work at Botify. A little bit about Botify. What it is. It's a startup. It was born in Paris in 2012. It's a French company. But today we have 5 different locations, a lot of smart people, amazing customers across the globe. We are venture backed. And the reason why I love working at Botify is because it is a true enterprise platform. So we're solving a lot of interesting, difficult problems for the larger sites out there. We have a unified data model. So historically, if you guys are familiar with SEO, the industry has been obsessed with some keyword ranking tools. Even before that, it was like keyword stuffing. But we like to look at our data holistically. So we take a look at everything, starting with the health of your website and then indexation and only then keywords. And I started at Botify in February of this year. And even in the last 6 to 8 months that I've been there, I've seen a lot of innovation. So it's always moving forward. So kind of like a quick diagram of the full data model of Botify. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later when we dig into some data insights, but I think it should give you a pretty good overview of what the company is. And the way we like to look at the health of a website, we start with the full search funnel. So before we know what's ranking for you, we want to be able to kind of like crawl the website and see what pages you have, like what is the URL structure, how pages are being rendered, is there a JavaScript, what are the factors that might affect indexation rates, and only then we talk about keywords, what keyword terms are driving traffic to your site. So the goal for us doing SEO within the platform is to kind of like maximize your performance at every step of this funnel. So we want to be able to make sure that bots are crawling all the pages that are important, and then all of the pages being rendered, and then they have a chance to be indexed and ranked and drive conversions for your websites. So we're optimizing every step of this SEO process. So before we get into the details, I have a quick video snapshot from This guy right here, he's Martin Split from Google, and he has this series on YouTube called SEO myth busting, where he takes a different topic each episode and talks about myths around it, specifically around SEO. So there is this interesting bit about site performance. So let's listen in. I have a link to this video at the end. Let me just quickly summarize it for everybody. So essentially what he says, that the site performance is important, not only for the best user experience, but also for visibility and search. And I'll have all those links at the end of the deck. So let's talk about why pages are slow. And most of this you guys probably already know, but just wanted to, at the high level, cover all the different factors that might affect performance. So we have a group of technology factors, right? So we can have speed issues at any point between the client, those are our laptops, the phones, and the origin server where the website is being hosted, and anything in between, right? The internet service providers and whatnot. So these are the technical factors that could affect performance. And a lot of times, if your site is on the smaller size, or maybe you have not invested in a CDN, if you don't have a CDN and you don't have caching, then you're not taking full advantage of optimizing for page speed. And then the other group, we have content factors. So stuff like large images on your pages, file sizes, like CSS sometimes can get out of hand if a lot of people are working on the same website and it's just growing and growing. Embedded video, media players can add to the size of the pages as well. And then the final piece of the puzzle here is JavaScript, which is used a lot on pretty much any website these days. And a lot of times, although there's interactivity, can add time like seconds or fractions of a second to the page speed. So again, here's Martin, and as search engine optimizers, we're always wondering, is JavaScript an issue for our websites? If we have JavaScript content, can Google effectively crawl and render and index the site? And he keeps saying that actually JavaScript is not a problem. JavaScript and search can be friends. But of course, that's if sites are built with JavaScript in the correct way and everything is visible to search engines. So here's his quote from one of the latest talks that took place in June. And then if JavaScript is okay, then why some content is not showing? Why can't we sometimes see it in search results? So Google and other bots actually might encounter timeouts when they try and crawl JavaScript content, because it's like a two-wave process. First, they would come and crawl HTML, and if they see that there is JavaScript involved, they would then render and index JavaScript content in the second wave. So Google might have rendering issues. Sometimes it might decide to skip some resources, or they're simply blocked with robots.txt. And because of dependencies, a lot of times it's not directly visible to us. So we don't know that the file was blocked, and then in the end, content didn't show. Google can also decide that the content is low quality, so it's not going to index it, or it might index it later with a delay, or it simply cannot discover the page for reasons such as, your page is interactive. So for content to show up on page, sometimes it might rely on user events such as, scrolling or clicks, or some elements might be lazy loaded. And you can see them without this user interactions. And search bots, they don't click around, they don't scroll. So what they see in the first pass, that's what they get. And then the content can just be too deep. It lives at the depth further down in the site, and Googlebot just didn't have time to get to it. So a lot of issues around JavaScript and content not showing for search engine bots. And also, we are in this time of year, crazy time. Later today, I'm sure a lot of you guys will be watching the debate, but I wanted to also bring up the third party when it comes to plugins and scripts. So as engineers and webmasters and search engine optimizers, sometimes we can try and do everything possible on our own website, but we also rely on third-party plugins, such as chat widgets, analytics, video players. We also have reviews for a lot of pages. For a lot of our customers, we have like Bazaar Voice, which is like their review provider, and they load JavaScript independently of our own, so we don't have, we simply don't have access to those files, so we can't troubleshoot them effectively. So we talked about the factors that could be affecting our page speed. So now let's talk about two ways to look at it. One would be from the user's point of view. So it's us, people browsing the web, and the second would be from the search engine's bot's point of view. And I have a little story here to start with. So we have a client in Europe because we have an office in Paris, and they decided that they wanted to improve their page speed. So they started doing that. It lasted them about the year. And in the Botify platform, we're actually able to record average delay to load pages in March of 2018, which is a little bit over 1 second. And then a year later, we ran the same analysis and we saw improvement in speed. So now it's like 330 milliseconds. So that was all good. So how did Google actually respond? What we also can do in the platform, we can take a look how bots are crawling the website and how frequently they do that. So this chart on the left is showing us crawl frequency in 2018 before the optimizations. And then we have this chart here, which shows us that Google used to crawl this website. Some pages never got crawled, some pages got crawled very rarely, and 7% of pages got crawled 80% of the time. And then after they optimized for speed, the site is being crawled pretty much all of it all the time. So this was all good, but it took a whole year for them to do that. They invested a lot of resources, time and money into this project. And then we were wondering, like, is there anything we could do to replicate this success for other customers with less resources involved? And that's why we decided to look at page speed from 2 points of view, one from users and one from bots. And we all know, as internet users, that we all like pages that are fast, and bots want the same thing, but the reason that they want them are actually quite interesting. So as users, we come to a website and we want to have a very rich, engaging experience. We like pages, pretty, interactive. We want to be able to click around, see those like fancy drop-down navigation menus. We want to perform an action on the website, such as at least read some content. A lot of times we watch stuff online, we buy, we add items to carts, we want to browse related products, we want to share stuff. So we want to perform an action on the website. And we also want to stick around. If the content is good, then we want to stay on the website, consume the content, spend some time. And the search bots actually want to do different things. They want to come to the site and crawl as many URLs as quickly as possible. They want to get clear ranking signals, which is pretty much just your content and links. And then they want to move on to the next site. So if bots could have dreams of their own, I think the internet of their dreams would look a lot like this, which is like the internet circa 1995 or something. So all they care about is text and links, nothing else. They don't want anything being interactive. They don't care about it. And their needs are very different. So in the end, users want usability. They want interactive pages, even if the pages are a little bit slower than plain text. And the number of those pages are usually small, right? We only browse like a handful of pages on the site. And bots want speed. They don't care about usability. They want pages to be fast as possible. And they want all of the pages on the site to be fast because they want to be able to crawl all of the site and the whole internet at the end. And pages as we know them, the websites, are mostly optimized for users, which is not a surprise. That's why we have performance issues when it comes to search, because the sites are not optimized for bots. They're optimized for users. And page speed is a hard problem to fix because it's hard to fix for users, and then it's even harder to fix for bots. So now let's talk about like why do we need to fix page speed? I think a lot of those insights would be really familiar to you from the previous talks, but I just wanted to kind of like take a look again from 2 points of view. So slow speed is bad for user experience. We all know this. The slower the site, the higher the bounce rate is. So these are just some insights from Google itself. So they did some studies and they actually found that, a second delay in mobile can impact conversion rate by 20%. They also had this very nice calculator where you can plug in the number of seconds that you plan to improve your speed for. So going from 2.4 to 1.2, and expect this much more additional revenue if your site becomes faster. And then this year, Google announced Core Web Vitals for user experience. Actually, earlier this year in the summer, Rick Viscami from Google did a great talk during the New York Web Performance Meetup, and he covered those Core Web Vitals in a lot of detail. So I'm not going to go too much into them, but I just wanted to note that there's 3 of them. One is measuring loading page speed, and the second one is interactivity, and the third one for visual stability. And the reason they call them core is because they apply to all the pages on the internet. So this is what I learned from Rick. Measuring speed for those core web vitals is done using standard web APIs, so it's easy to measure. And then the 3 of them collectively represent the user experience. And we care about this because now those web vitals are also part of the ranking signals for Google. So in addition to sites being mobile friendly, the browsing being safe, they also take into consideration those core web vitals. And of course, content takes priority, right? So if you have a really nice user experience on a site with bad content, then you're not going to gain too much. But if the content is good, then Google and bots would take those web vitals into consideration for search visibility. The way they measure it is actually pretty straightforward. They just collect all this data through your Chrome. They store it in a BigQuery database, and then they expose all those metrics through a bunch of different tools. I'm sure all of you used, PageSpeed Insights, Chrome UX Report. We in SEO use Search Console a lot, and then I use Lighthouse as my browser plugin. So it's pretty straightforward how we measure page speed for users. It's no big deal. We can do that. But now let's take a look. How do we actually measure it for bots? What's the KPI for page speed? Before we go into this, I wanted to kind of introduce the concept of crawl budget. Those of you familiar with SEO probably know what it is, but just wanted to do a quick overview of crawl budget. So essentially, crawl budget for any website is the number of URLs that search bots can and want to crawl. And there are 2 components to crawl budget. The first one here is crawl rate limit, and the second is crawl demand. And the rate limit is the number of connections the bots can make in the time between fetches. So imagine if you have a website with millions of URLs, bots will not crawl it one by one. They're just going to establish multiple connections and try to fetch those pages as quickly as possible. So if your servers are well optimized, you have an infrastructure in place, the response time is really fast, then the crawl health and rate limit are high. So this is where actually performance comes into play. But sometimes some websites might want to limit those scroll rates for some reasons. If they cannot sustain all those traffic from bots, they might want to slow it down. And there's a way to do that. For Google, it would be through Search Console. There is a setting where you can actually limit it, even though they don't recommend it. They just want to be able to crawl as much as possible. But if you must, you can do that. And then for Bing, you can use this directive in your robots.txt file. And the way to kind of find out what your crawl rate is would be, again, through Google Search Console. There is a tab under Legacy Tools. So this can give you an approximate number of pages crawled per day. We have a better way to measure it through log file analysis. This is where you can see exactly what Google and other bots are crawling, but as a proxy, I think Search Console works as well. And then the second component for crawl budget is actually crawl demand. So imagine your site is really good, as well optimized, as fast, but if your content is not popular online, that bots would know it and would not crawl the website as often as they might. So some large websites, such as New York Times, like large publishers, they have a lot of content published on a daily basis, like even on the hourly basis, they have all this new stuff, and that's why we see that bots would come and crawl our website not just once per day, but multiple times per day, even maybe once an hour or more often. So the more popular the site, the more often it gets crawled. And staleness is another factor. So we have those large publishers that produce a lot of content, and on the other hand, we might have some smaller websites that don't get updated a lot. So I have a blog and I haven't touched it in maybe a year or so. So Google's not going to crawl my website even if it's super fast because the content is not changing. So it might just crawl it once a month to make sure it's fresh in the index, but that's about it. So if you're doing site migrations, sometimes you will see spikes in crawl demand because Google wants to, understand what the changes are, recrawl it really fast, and index the new stuff. So sometimes site-wide events might trigger an increase in crawl demand. So going back to the crawl budget, we know the two components. We have one of them here that is related to page speed, and then the second one is related to content. So in order for us to kind of optimize and make sure the crawl budget is as big as possible, would be make our sites fast and also publish fresh and quality content on a regular basis. Now let's dig into the data. So how can we actually find some insights around performance in SEO? How do we measure it? So here we'll be covering some platform insights. And I have another story about this section. This is the time when I started at Botify. It was in February. First week, I had 2 days in the office. And then the second week, I went to London for training. And then the third week, I come into the office, and it's a partial week because everything was starting to shut down. And the boss of my boss is asking me to find some insights on for one of the clients related to page performance. And I had no clue how to do this. I was super new. I just started to learn the platform. But of course, I couldn't say no. So I said, yes, I'll find something. And then eventually I went from not knowing nothing to having all those insights, which I'm about to share with you guys. So the way we get those insights, again, because we have so many different data sources plugged into Botify, we're actually able to see pretty much everything related to your website health. So we can crawl entire website and record all the URLs, different page types, and load times. We crawl and render with JavaScript, which is kind of a great feature to have because we crawl the website and render it in the same way as Googlebot would do it. So you know exactly if your site is performing and showing content in JavaScript as it would for bots. So here we can actually record all the content and also time to render. And then we can add your log file data to do full log file analysis. And this is a step that's really, really difficult to do because of the sheer amount of data. Imagine your servers and they're getting so many different data points stored in the logs. So that has been really difficult to do for SEOs, but we do it really well. So from here, we can get crawl frequency from bots. Then we also add analytics, so we can see the visits data for the site. And then finally, keywords through Google Search Console, so we can see clicks and click-through rates, conversion data. So let's take a look at the crawl budget first, right? We talked about crawl budget, what it is. And for this particular website, it's a fairly large site, so it has almost 3 million different URLs. We can see what we crawled. So this is this circle in blue, everything that we're able to find through our crawler. And then in the red, we can see that there is a lot of URLs that Google is crawling. So there's a section that is crawling that we don't have in our site structure anymore. But on this side, we have all of those URLs in blue that Google doesn't know about yet because it didn't have time to crawl all of them. So the crawl rate for this particular website is a little bit less than 60%. Now let's take a look at the crawl frequency. How often does Googlebot crawl this website? So we know that about 60% of the site is being crawled, but then let's take a look at the crawl frequency, and we can see that 40% of the URLs get crawled, but very rarely. So in a given month, maybe 5 or 6 days, those pages are being crawled. And this actually correlates with frequency. So if pages never get crawled, they don't have a chance to kind of get visits. So You can see here that almost 92%, 91% of those URLs that never get visits, which is pretty, well, there's a lot of room for improvement. We also know, so this is one of the pages that I rendered with like a bot would see it with the HTML only and through like a regular desktop browser. So we can see that this particular website relies on JavaScript pretty heavily for all of its content and links. So if for some reason JavaScript is not rendered for bots, then they would not be able to see anything. Now, let's take a look at some of the performance metrics. Again, since this website's content is mostly rendered through JavaScript, if we just look at the HTML load times, they look pretty great. Everything's in green, they load super fast, but that's not enough. We want to be able to also measure JavaScript rendering times. There are multiple bars on this chart because we separate different page types. And I just like kind of like clear them for privacy reasons, but a few of them are left here. So there is a page type called listings, and then this website has products, and then there is like a shop segment. But the story here is that pretty much across the board, we can see the JavaScript rendering time are between 2 and 4 seconds, which we label medium. So they can certainly improve JavaScript rendering time for pretty much every page type. And also now we're looking at the visits data, so we can see how the site is built. So almost 80% of the URLs that we crawled are actually listings pages. So we know that there is a lot of different listings pages for a lot of different products. But from having the analytics data overlaid here, we can see that all those listing pages are responsible only for 20% of all the traffic. So we can certainly improve upon that. We can drive traffic to the listings pages more because there is like so many of them. And then if we drill down even further and take a look at the crawl frequency for this particular segment for listings, we can see again that there is like over 25% of them never get crawled. Some of them get crawled very rarely. So there is a lot of room for improvement. And imagine if all the pages on the site were much faster, Googlebot would be able to get into those listings pages and crawl more of them more often. Now let's talk about the correlation. Is there any correlation between the frequency of crawls and the number of visits? So again, this all data is coming straight from the platform. It's very easy for us to pull this data, and we can see that pages that never get crawled, this is the column here on the right, they actually get less than 5% of all visits. And now let's talk about the conversion data. So what's the correlation between page speed and conversions? So on this chart, we pulled a couple of metrics. This is delay to render. So on the bottom scale, we can see that delay to render 0 to 1 second, 1 to 2 seconds, more than 2 seconds. So most of the URLs that we found actually take a while to load, so that they take more than 2 seconds to load. They get a lot of clicks. But the interesting part here is actually this yellow line, which is a click-through rate by delay to render metric. So we can see that fast pages, they actually end up having like really high CTR, click-through rates. And even between 1 and 2 seconds, it's 4. And then the slower the pages, the lower the click-through rate is. So from all of this, from all of those insights, we're actually able to see piece by piece how this all comes together into like one picture. We know that slow load times result in crawl budget issues, right? And pages that they really rely on JavaScript for rendering content for this website. JavaScript performance is slow, so we can improve upon that. And if we optimize for speed, then the crawl rate is going to go up and the frequency is going to go up. So it's going to improve for the whole website. But the listings pages will see the most benefit. They will drive more traffic and they will drive more conversions. And because those listings pages, they have like one particular product on them, they tend to answer very specific queries. We call them like long tail queries. So if you're looking for, like white tennis shoes, you might land on the listing page specifically for white tennis shoes, and you're more likely to take a look at this product, add it to cart and buy the product and convert than if you say landed on the home page. now that we understand that page speed is important for users, it's important for bots, I think it's time to make pages faster, and how we can actually go about it. How do we do that? Let's fix performance. Item number one, I listed here. I think the first thing we have to do is to be aware of this issue and have the desire to fix this. And I think that's why we're all here at the New York Web Performance Meetup talking about this. An actual way to fix those JavaScript issues a lot of times is server-side rendering. So we see a lot of large clients actually trying to do that now, move from relying on the browser to actually render the pages and not knowing what's going to happen in the browser, to actually pre-render all this content on the server side and then deliver those like pre-rendered HTML pages to users. So that's one approach. It can be kind of like time consuming. Sometimes it's complicated if you have a really large website that's been around for a few years. Sometimes there's like technical debt, and sometimes the teams are being pulled in different directions. So it's good to have, but it's not always possible. Another thing you can do is called dynamic rendering, which is kind of serving content as you would for users. So nothing would change for the users, but for the bots, you would just kind of like look at the requests coming to your website. And if it's coming from a bot, you would serve it the pre-rendered content really fast. So you wouldn't need to render any JavaScript. Everything's going to be pre-rendered for you. And this is a product that we have that's pretty fresh. We just launched it in July. It's called Speedworkers. And Speedworkers is, this is what it is. It's a dynamic rendering solution specifically for bots. And what it does, it delivers fully rendered HTML pages only to search bots at a really high speed, which then results in, bots scrolling more of the site, indexing more of the pages, and then resulting in the end in more traffic and revenue for the customers. Let's take a look quickly at how it works. So we have our bots, we have our users, and we usually have a CDN for large enterprise websites. So we plug in Speedworkers at the CDN level. Akamai is a supported CDN, is a very popular one. Fastly as well. I think that's the sponsor of the New York Meetup. And Cloudflare. And we keep adding those CDNs as we go, but those three ones are really the popular ones. So we plug it at the CDN level, we cache and render all the pages, and then we take a look at the requests coming in. So if the request is coming from bots, we deliver fully rendered HTML at a really fast speed through the CDN. We don't even have to touch your website. And then for end users, nothing changes. They just get their own content. They have it, all the JavaScript is rendered in the browser, so everything stays the same. So the vision for Speedworkers is that we want to deliver consistently great performance across all the web pages. That's why we cache all the content. It's not selectively caching your top funnel pages. It's everything down to, your product pages or your listing pages or your articles. It's designed to work at scale. So the issue with performance for large websites is that they cannot dedicate their dev teams to this project and try and improve performance for the whole website at the same time. But we can certainly do that. We can serve millions of pages with Speedworkers. And then once it's set up, the teams didn't need to worry about maintaining the solution, didn't need to worry about uptime, didn't need to worry about troubleshooting, and so everything is done on the CDN level, and we have a whole team dedicated to that. And we also control for quality. So sometimes if you serve JavaScript and you're not sure whether your content is being rendered, maybe some of the reviews are not showing, which we heard from our customers. That's not the case because we control the full process. We actually have some quality checks to make sure that everything's showing up on pages. And we want to kind of like comply with Google's terms. So we know that dynamic rendering, that's something they've been talking about. It's okay. We actually had a webinar with Martin Split, and he talked about how it actually makes their lives easier because they don't have to do this like 2 waves of indexations. They don't have to pre-render any content and spend a lot of resources doing that. If they can get HTML really fast, then that's even better for them. So Google is actually one of those search engines that can render JavaScript, and Bing has more issues rendering JavaScript. So I think it's going to be even better for them. We're going to be doing a lot of work for that search engine. So in summary, I just wanted to kind of like summarize the learnings of this talk. We took a look at the page speed from 2 points of views. We know that faster pages for users result in lower bounce rates, right? Higher engagement rate and higher conversion rates. But we also know now that for search bots, speed is important because they can crawl more pages. And if they can crawl more pages, and if your pages are high quality, then there is a really, really good chance that those pages will be indexed and ranked and perform for you in search engines. And the more pages you have indexed and ranked, then of course, the more chance you have to drive organic traffic, sell more products, and generate the revenue for your website. Yeah, and that's it for me. Thank you so much. If you'd like to, keep in touch, ask me any questions. My email address is at the bottom, as well as my Twitter handle, but I don't tweet a lot, but I would, of course, read all of your messages. And now happy to answer any of the questions that we might have in the chat.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you very much. It was awesome. I answered Diana's questions. Yes, we are recording. We hope it will work out and it will be posted to our YouTube channel. And Tanya, I assume we will be able to share the slides as well, right?
Yep, of course.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll share the slides.
Yeah. So I have a question for regarding the slides about speed measurement that you did on the website that had conversion, I think.
Yeah, do you want me to go back to that one?
2 seconds, above 2 seconds. Yep, nope. The next one, this one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, well, CTRs, they're not necessarily business conversions, right? Like final business conversions, but
right, it's just
like,
landing on the website. Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. So I assume these numbers are synthetic, but I might be wrong here. Like, are these numbers coming from Google's Crux, the user experience database, user experience report database, or from your synthetic analysis tool?
This is from Google Search Console.
Mm-hmm.
So this is data from Google as it relates to keywords, because they record those metrics like click-through rates for each keyword and each URL. So this is from the Search Console.
Got it. Thank you.
And in terms of page speed, we record it on our end, so it would be our crawler, which will mimic basically the way Googlebot would crawl. So yeah, it's our own data. The speed data is our own, and the conversion data is from Google Search Console.
Good. So we have a question from Diana. What is the best way to justify a CDN? In parentheses, cost. Justify cost for the CDN.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the best way to justify a cost of a CDN? I would be curious to hear the size of the website and the type of the website you have. And CDN, I think they tend to be kind of like a general best practice for even like the medium-sized websites, right? Because the benefits of a CDN is that you can cache your content. You don't need to have users hit your web servers all the time. If you have a CDN, it just does it for you. It pre-caches all the content, such as your images, CSS files, JavaScript files. They don't change too much. So it caches them so it can store them faster, and also would save you, infrastructure costs for web hosting. I think it's a pretty common practice now to have a CDN. I think they're not super expensive at this point, right? I think like Cloudflare, CloudFront has good options for medium-sized websites. So I think I would just like list the benefits of a CDN and the cost savings. I think if you take a look at their pricing pages for, I don't know, maybe like Cloudflare, they would be able to even outline it there for you. But it's certainly beneficial to have one.
By the way, Tanya, you can turn on the camera because I feel weird that they can see my face but not yours.
All right, here I go.
So another question, how do we handle URL changes for SEO?
How do we handle URL changes for SEO? I think I need a little bit of clarification on this one. If the site changes, or like when would you change the URLs at which point? If you migrate the website to a new platform, or if you decide to change the URL on the content that you have already. So if you have an article and you just want to change the URL for that.
Yes, Samar, if you can.
Yeah, just need a little bit more information about changing the URLs.
And we can, while we wait for the Samar, Lothar is asking, can you quantify how much speed improvement can improve a page ranking? The ultimate question.
The ultimate question, yes. Yes, we can. So again, the reason we can do this is because we collect so many data points and we kind of like weave them together into one story. So it's not just like going to different tools and measuring page speed and like overlaying the data metrics and analytics and whatnot. Yes, so we can quantify whether page speed improvement will actually improve page ranking because we can see the number of URLs ranking. So if the site becomes fast, the more pages will be indexed and drive traffic. So we can certainly see that through Google Search Console metrics. And then we can also measure the positions where they rank. And I don't have a chart for it in my presentation, but we can actually see a lot of times that faster URLs tend to be ranked in positions like 1 to 4 at the top of search results. So yeah, we have a way to measure that.
And I think I see Samar is answered. Yes, migrating to a new code base or framework would cause URL change.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. So it's more of an SEO question, maybe not specifically related to performance. If you migrate to a new code base or a framework, what I would do, I would take a snapshot of your website before and after. So I would do, the crawl, the full analysis to make sure we recorded everything pre-migration to have like all those metrics and the list of URLs. And then after the migration, I would make sure that all of your content is mapped one-to-one. So the pages that you used to have, they translated over to the new website. And then if some pages for some reason didn't make it, then you would want to take a look at those and set up redirects so you don't lose your search rankings. So if you had a page and the page is no longer there, but there is a similar page to that, you might want to like redirect the traffic to that page.
I see we have a couple more SEO specific questions. I kind of want to jump to the question by Rich Howard, who is a performance consultant. Could you explain how speed workers work, algorithm works? Like, does it use a proxy like Varnish in front of the web servers to help with the page pre-rendering? And what are the SEO implications of pre-rendering different content to SEO bots?
Excellent. This is a very technical question, and I think there's like 3 questions in one. So let's do one by one. How the Speedworkers algorithm works and how this integrates with the CDN. So I'm not on the engineering team, so I don't have like super in-depth detail on that. But what I can tell you is that for Akamai, it's a pretty easy integration with edge workers, I think, and similar with Cloudflare. So they use those edge workers to set up the configuration. I don't know if it's set up as a proxy in front of web service to help render. We don't touch web service, so everything is on CDN level. And then pre-rendering is done. The way we do it, we would crawl the website. We save all the scroll data, like flat HTML with pre-rendered content. And then those are the pages that we would then cache and serve to search bots. And the SEO implications of pre-rendering different content to SEO bots is actually there is no implications because we're not changing anything. All we do is we take your website, we crawl it with JavaScript, we save those like HTML snapshots and serve the same information to search bots. So nothing is changing. We're not manipulating any content. We're not changing any links. We're just serving flat pages faster. And also we can, with speed workers, we can set up the frequency of how often you would want to refresh those pages. So say you're an e-commerce website and you have your product pages and you change this catalog every day, you know, pricing changes or like products come in and out of stock. So those would be crawled and pre-rendered, refreshed on a daily basis. And then you have, you know, your top funnel pages, like your category pages. They don't change too much. So maybe those would be refreshed like once a week or twice a week. And then you have pages such as like, you know, FAQ and legal that never change. So those would be refreshed maybe like once a month. So we can also set up frequency of refresh.
Yeah, I kind of like this approach of basically prioritizing speed over staleness, because staleness is actually in control of search bots, and since you know search bots, you can
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
they, you know.
maybe they only come once a week, so we would refresh it once a week for them.
And since it's only served to search bots, like there's no impact on users, which is yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, great questions.
Yeah. So question, does dynamic content in the site prevent scrollers to crawl fast? The question is from SKC.
Yes, good question. It does not necessarily prevent the crawlers from crawling fast. It depends on the server. So if you have dynamic content that's being served with PHP, it all depends on like how fast you can serve the content. You can have dynamic content, it's fine. It can crawl that, but if you can control how fast it can be served to bots, then of course it's better to make your web servers fast. But having dynamic content is fine.
I want to add one thing that I learned, that the word dynamic is overloaded. So inside the organizations, people often think that yes, our content is absolutely dynamic. Static is bad, you know, like, but that's all like just on a scale from 0 to very infrequent, you know. So reality is everything is static for some period of time, you know, which makes it dynamic effectively, right? And the moment you frame that conversation right, it's only about like adjusting those frequencies. Sorry for stepping in here, but but I had that conversation a lot of times. Oh, nice question from Italy. How much of ranking value comes from the page speed as seen by bots versus page speed for users via Crux?
Fantastic question. I love it. This is great. Yes, so the ranking value comes from the page speed for users, because we talked about that. Remember that they collect the core web vitals now. So the ranking value in part will come from those like user experience metrics. But for bots, the most value they would see from fast pages is in crawl, like in crawl budget. So they can get more pages crawled and indexed. So you can what you can do, you can like kind of like tackle it from both sides. If you use speed workers, we take care of the bots, so you don't have to worry about that at all. What you can do then with your you know, engineering teams, you can focus on optimizing page speed for users. So bots will get more pages scrolled, they would get them fast, they can rank more pages just by the sheer volume. But on the other hand, you will have your engineering teams working on page speed for users, and then those like core web vitals metrics will signal the bots as well that the pages are fast and they provide good user experience, so we might just rank them higher.
Murali is asking how to measure rendering of the page. Can you suggest any tools and techniques?
How to measure rendering of the page? Yes, at the end of my deck, I think I have a list of tools that you can measure rendering. Mobile-friendly tool from Google is one of them. If you can see everything rendered on that page, it means like it's being rendered by Google. They used to have some of our clients actually use the cached version of the page. You know, sometimes you can see in search results there is a link that says cached, and sometimes like it's not visible. So Google basically said don't use that, it's not accurate. So they recommend the mobile friendly test, and the second one I'm forgetting, but it's similar to that.
And I want to add that for user experience, for user side of things, right? Like for user speed, that's what we do at Meet for Speed sessions. If you're interested next week, absolutely join us. Basically, we use Lighthouse. You mentioned Lighthouse, right? Like that that is very useful tool. And Google Page Speed
Page speed
Insights, which is
insights. Yep.
effectively hosted Lighthouse by Google. And Web Page Test is another tool, our favorite tool. Like if you need more details and if you want to know how to address it. And obviously Chrome developer tools, but that's like they have their own pros and cons. And this is a very big topic. Let's put it this way. Like that's basically the
Yeah.
topic of our meetup, almost there for all of these years. Yes. Okay. Question. Banks, for instance, mostly have authenticated pages. How can they look at improving speed by comparing to competition? As publicly available datasets such as Crux is only available for non-authenticated pages.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any SEO concerns out there available? Oh, sorry. Are there any SEO concepts out there available that can help such fintech companies learn from competition?
This is a very good question. I personally don't have a lot of experience with the fintech and banking industry if it's behind the authentication login. But what we can do with our crawler is we can actually go behind the login as long as it's like one of those like HTTP authentications. So we'll be able to crawl your website and record like all of those like speeds for bots in particular, and take a look at how you're looking. As far as comparing that to competition through publicly available data sets, I don't know if Chrome can actually record those. I would
Well,
look at the.
that's a very good question because I'm not positive that Crux cannot record those because Crux data comes from actual Chrome in the field, right? The
Mhm.
question though is that they might be blocked from bots, right? Like, and Crux would obviously Crux system will actually follow bot blocking guidelines, right? Like if banking website said don't track those pages, Crux would not track those pages. But technically, there is no problem for Crux to measure that because it comes from Chrome. But it is probably a better question for Google team. And yes, again, I'm not aware of any other data sets that are available.
I think Ben responded and said you could look at comparable sites, but you could get similar info from PageSpeed Insights and Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And he is at Google, so he can help. That's awesome.
There is another aspect of it. You're obviously asking for comparison with competition, and that's one challenge. But analyzing those web pages is also possible using scripted synthetic tools and run tools that you have, right? Again, not competition, but your own pages. You can still analyze using RUM, real user measurement, or using tools like Web Page Test, or there are a few others where you can script authentication and continue. We actually did that to a few websites at our meetup at Meet for Speed sessions. Again, this is a different question, I know.
+1
Yes.
to web page test.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And synthetic is the easiest answer in most of those cases because yes, your considerations are different, and yes, you don't have a competitive analysis tool. Yes, but at least you can have time trending and you can identify the causes for slowness using synthetic tools without necessarily needing to have like an external source of real user data. Again, synthetic versus RAM is like basically a conversation since RAM was invented.
I also see one questions in the Q&A. So there is like a chat window and there's a Q&A window,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it
right.
seems, I'm going to read it out loud. The speed worker solution sounds great. How much of ranking value comes from the page speed seen by bots versus page speed by users via Crux? Yeah, so I think we covered a similar question. The ranking value from Crux is okay. I think it closed. Yeah, so the ranking value from Crux is important for the pages that are already ranking for you, but if you want to expose more of those pages, I think optimizing for bots is a good way to go.
I like this separation of the two concepts, right? That user experience helps you with how highly the page ranks, but in order for it to be crawled, it needs to be bot speed that matters as well, right? So both matter, because page will not be ranked at all if it's not crawled, right? But once it's crawled, you kind of want it to be fast for users as well.
Yeah.
I like this double-sided explanation, which takes a lot of time to wrap your brain around. Usually, thank you, Tanya.
Yeah, of course. And everybody in SEO is trying to optimize for speed now. So performance is top of mind with the introduction of those like core web vitals. We're actually adding that feature into the platform, so we'll be able to measure that as well. That's next year though. So yeah, we're all thinking about this. Everybody's trying to optimize for it. And because we have the speed worker solution, we tell the teams, don't worry about the bots, care about the users, provide the best user experience, the best page speeds. So you can be working on it. Ben in Q&A said about speed workers, is it possible to simply serve the faster server-side rendered pages to users too? Because arguably the real reason for fast pages isn't SEO boost, but user happiness. Absolutely, yes. Server-side rendering is a great way to go. If you can do that, it serves both users and bots. So if you just don't want to split your work, you can certainly do it this way. But what we see for a lot of customers, it's just not an option for them because the websites are so huge. They have like a lot of inventory. They have to continuously like work on it, and just like doing server-side rendering is really difficult for them. We were just like talking to one of the customers last week, and that's the way they're doing it, which is great, and we're happy for them. But they told us it takes them a while. So even to optimize like one page template to be like server-side rendered, it takes them like months, and then they have to test it, and they have to implement, and they have to maintain it. So it takes work.
Yeah, I would say in my experience, organizationally, it's a very hard challenge to create both very well server-side rendered and great experience website. And most of the times today, these organizations just cannot change the code base they have. It's not a question of could they build it at all today. It's a question of, oh, they have a huge property already that is very hard to turn around. Basically, usually they need to re-architect, not just rewrite the code, re-architect the overall solution. And that's why being able to use a tool like this speed workers just to serve bots who are not as picky as users in user experience, right? And basically cannot interact with web page to begin with, right? Is a great option if it's like you can't do that without rewriting and re-architecting the existing system, which would be much harder to provide as a solution to interactive, rich user experience pages, right?
Yeah, they can use it now. They can see the benefit right away. They can get like more search traffic while they're like rebuilding their website using server-side rendering and whatnot.
I wish there was a magical solution that just sped up everything.
There's not. It's a really difficult thing. That's why we're here for 11 years, Sergey, talking about this. Question in the chat, any recommended sources or guidelines you recommend for SEO? Of course, there's a lot of sources for performance specifically. I will have them in my deck. If you're thinking about like SEO in general, Google has a ton of great resources because you want to take everything from, straight from the source, and they're like their authority. They put those guidelines in place. So the first place I usually look is like Google Webmaster Guidelines, Web Dev website. Yeah, I can send the list of the resources for SEO. We have a very great blog on Botify, very, very technical. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody so much for attending. Hopefully one of those times we'll meet in person.